Welcome. I'm Aaron Jack, your host today, and today we're going to be having a conversation with Juan Delcan. I'm so happy to have you here to be present with us today. Thank you so much. I'm so excited for our conversation today. Here we go. We're just going to add Juan on here. We're here with Doing Good HQ, where you, the artist, the creator, can also be the philanthropist. Thank you so much for joining. I'm Aaron Jack. I'm here every week with you and a wonderful moment in time. Thank you. Hey.
Hello.
What is bringing you joy today?
Well, that I'm alive, man. This is it's not a small thing. I actually woke up and I put the feet in the ground, which is my first conquer of the day.
Wow. I think that's so important, is like to find that, to conquer that first moment, because it's pretty early for you.
I've been awake for a while. I had my first delivery this morning.
Wow.
So yeah, I was half asleep, so I'm not sure how it came out.
Amazing. So in the unplanned world, how do you find yourself exploring the unplanned world between art and creativity?
Well, I think that when you've been doing this for a certain amount of time, you start like creating a little bit of a bag of tricks, and which it could be very handy but very dangerous, because if you start repeating yourself of just going the easy road because you know it works, so I try to just do this game where I have very short memory, it could be a blessing for a creative, I think, because I throw it out in the trash again, and I just think that I've never done this before. I pretend that every job is new, and I have no idea what I'm doing.
Wow, that's pretty incredible. How do you go about that, like finding that cycle of like throwing it out and finding that newness?
I don't know. Maybe it's, I mean, something that I always love about one of my favorite expressions here in America is the "fake it until you make it," and we don't have like a translation for that phrase in Spanish. I think I'm gonna make one. So I believe that I still believe that I'm very lucky every time that I get a job and somebody just trusts me they trust me with a project, because I deep inside I want to think that I have no idea what the fuck I'm doing. And it's okay, and I think it's good, because it's impossible to become an expert. Experts are wonderful people and we need them, but experts in arts, I think could be, I mean, it's more like artisans than the artists that I'm most interested. I mean, I'm interested in artisans very much so, and I'm thankful that there are people that don't fake it until they make it, and they're experts in science and doctors and the medical area, engineers. So hopefully they don't fake it until they make it, because a lot of people can die in the meantime. But artists, in the other hand, I think that faking until you make it is something you need to do until the day you stop creating art. You just need to constantly reinvent yourself. Otherwise, you become an artisan, which is wonderful, but it's not truly the kind of artist that I'm interested in.
Could you maybe, yeah, I'm very curious in that difference there between the artisan and the artist that you're interested in. Like, what is that? Maybe you could further define that kind of difference in there.
I mean, maybe. I mean, it goes back to define what art is, and I have no idea. There's all kinds of, I mean, who can define that? There was a really brilliant play called Art that I saw in New York, like, I don't know, 20 years ago. And it was just making fun of the definition of art. And also what an artist, how somebody considers themselves an artist, which is almost like somebody that is a human being that is a little bit more elevated or some bullshit like that. And I think that is untrue. I mean, we are all artists. We really are all artists, but we've been, like, artists are being trying to play this game or create this illusion that only, and this mystic kind of understanding of what art is, and only the chosen one are artists, and the rest of the world are just mortals. And I don't believe in that. I really don't believe in that. I think artists, to me, is just paying attention. So if somebody decides to pay attention to certain things and deepen into them, they're artists. And I think we are all artists. I think we all have the capacity or capability to become artists. So there is not just for the chosen ones. It's for whoever they decides to choose to pay attention and to do something about that. So that is, I mean, there are some that are better than others or more interesting than others, of course. But the ones that are interesting to me may not be interesting for another artist. So it's, so I don't know. The definition of art, I have no idea. I don't give it much thought, to be honest. So the difference between artist and artisan, only in my point of view, is that an artisan is somebody that does become an expert, does become very, very good in that specific thing they do, ceramics, paintings, modeling, or whatever it is. They become really, really good at it. Where an artist is somebody that I think should be always paying attention and curious and investigating and playing without really settling too much. I mean, that for me, I mean, Picasso is a really good example. He's constantly looking for, I mean, shifting styles and looking and experimenting. Even when you see him painting, and in that movie, The Mystery Picasso, when he started like doing one painting, you may think that he already has the idea or the plan of what that painting is going to be, but it shifts and changes. And what started being one thing in the beginning, all of a sudden it finishes with, I mean, it starts with a portrait and finishes with a landscape, and he doesn't care. He's open and paying attention to what happens to him, which I think that is probably the most important thing for an artist. Pay attention to what happens to you, how do you react to things, and what is happening around you. I mean, that to me, and again, is my definition of art. I would never put it in a book or a dictionary saying, there's the definition of art or an artist or an artisan. But it's my understanding. It's really what motivates me, is people that are curious. And they're not worried about making mistakes. And actually, for an artist, I don't think there are mistakes. Again, fake it until you make it. Yes, probably the faking part is much more intriguing and interesting than making it. You know, it's like the uncertainty, the fear. It's like going into a jungle and then getting out. Probably the part that you're in the middle of that jungle and investigating and seeing things for the first time is really what is fascinating. It's even when I do work, specific work or for a client, the most fun part is when I'm doing the storyboards and fantasizing what is I'm going to do, and even all the ideas that I have prior for it to materialize in my head are so much better than the final result. So that is, and it's okay, because if the final result is better than what you imagine, then the next project I'm gonna be. I mean, you have to always search for something, so for something new that intrigues you. And I see that in the people that I follow in Instagram, is people that are not necessarily perfect or really good in one thing as much as they are in searching. They're constantly searching for new, I don't know what.
There's an element of this search and exploration that you're bringing up that is integral to the artist, to the recreation of self, to the finding within the self. as the journey continues on. How do you find that you're able to continue to refresh that palette, if you would, that palette of understanding, that palette within the self, to find a way to refresh, to see the world anew, to continue to explore with curiosity and fresh eyes?
Um, I don't know. I mean, part of it is just how I am. I mean, I do get bored. I get bored very easily, and especially I get bored of myself very easily. So if I don't push myself, I mean, what is the fun? I do spend a lot of hours during the day working, so it better be fun, because otherwise my life would be misery. And my life, I mean, I in that little world that I create by surrounding myself of the characters and the things that I do, I do find joy. And I think it's the only way really to get something done, whether you're like a carpenter or a somebody working in a laboratory. You need that is, I think that is crucial, is to find joy in. I mean, I remember I was going to the other day in Madrid. This was years ago actually, and I enter in a miniature store. I had no need for any miniatures, and but I was always curious because I went back by that street and by that store many days, and I also was curious. And that day I had a little bit more extra time, so I was like, I'm just gonna stop. I just need to know what is in there. And I went in. There was nobody but the vendor, the guy that was in the store, and I started asking him questions. There was like miniature trees, miniature people, and it was mostly the kind of stuff that architects or people that do architecture buy to do like miniature buildings just to put in front of their clients. That's why I found out, but I went inside of the store and I found it fascinating. It was extremely expensive. Every tree would be a lot of money. So I was not interested in buying anything as much as just being surrounded by that. I felt like Gulliver. I mean, so gigantic next to all those little things, and I loved it. But the most interesting thing was the guy who was selling those miniatures. That was his job. He's an older gentleman, and he was not as interested in selling me anything as much as educating me what is that he had, and he was passionate about it. So that to me is just as inspiring as seeing like a beautiful piece of art, is the interaction with somebody that love what they do, that they find joy in actually putting in front of you those little trees and the difference between the trees and why this one catches the light a little bit better. And if you combine these trees with this other one, you can create a little bit of the idea of a backyard in that. I mean, and he was just, he didn't create those things. It wasn't him, the artist. He was just selling them, but he sold them with such joy that that attracts me. I think that it attracts me more than some really good craftsman. Is somebody that does find joy in every day. That is, I'm curious, and it's contagious. Joy by somebody is contagious, and if I could actually give a little bit of my joy away, that would be amazing. When I was younger, I used to assist my father, who's a cardiologist, has his private consultation. This was in Madrid years ago. I was like 16, 17 years old. It was probably illegal for me to be assistant of a doctor. But I was in charge of doing the electrocardiograms. And the patients would need to go to do like some exercise. So I will do prior to doing the exercise and then afterwards. But they were like freaking out. They were scared shitless because it was their heart. And everybody thinks that they have this horrible condition and we procrastinate to go to the doctor or something. But this was for a company, for IBM Spain, and everybody that worked in IBM, when they turned 45, they had to go to the doctor. That was part of the deal. So a lot of them were actually the first time that they went to cardiologists, and deep inside they had the fear that there was horrible heart condition. So they will go there, some of them shaking, and very, very afraid. And my father will just spend 15 minutes with them, asking them always the same questions. And then he will send them to me for me to do the two electrocardiograms, the passive, which is the one without exercise, and then have him go into a treadmill and do another one active. And I could see how the heart was beating. So I was 17 years old. I was thinking that I was going to become a doctor, but I thought, okay, these people are going to be with me for about 10 to 15 minutes. They've been thinking about this day probably for weeks, and they are scared. And I found, I mean, already back then I found computers, and this was like a little mini machine. I wouldn't even call it a computer, that I would read the heartbeats, and so I could tell how nervous or scared they were before even doing the active. After doing the exercise, I think they just start getting distracted and they feel a little bit better. But I could already see how their heart was betraying them, of hiding that they were scared. And so I would try to, I mean, I was 17, so some days I was a little bit more naughty than others. I would just maybe play with the way I was looking at the electrocardiogram and put faces, and I could see how they were altering their heartbeats by doing that. And other days I decided that those 15 minutes, I always thought about that miniature guy, because that was like, or people like that, or the bus driver, or whoever that shares joy. And I was thinking, if these people that come to me so scared, they leave with a little bit of joy, of feeling better, I will conquer that day in a way, even if it's just one of them. And I felt that it was almost, and it was rewarding. It was not just for being good, because making them feel better, and I could actually read it, but obviously I would just print out the electrocardiogram, give it to my father, and he would tell them exactly what was going on. But I would try to have that moment be as pleasant as possible. And that to me is the kind of how would I say, experiences that I want to surround myself with every day. Whether it's following artists, looking at art, going to museums, having a conversation with you right now. That is that is my little drawer collection thing of things that I want to do a day. I have no interest in suffering, no interest in having a rough time. So I try to avoid that. Sometimes it's unavoidable, but I try to avoid things that are not making me feel big. And that doesn't mean that there's not an effort involved. I'm okay with making efforts. I'm just not okay with experiences that suck my energy, like vampirize. Is that a word? They're like vampires. They just suck the energy in a negative way. And sometimes you cannot avoid it. I mean, you have a client like that, or maybe there's something you have to do that you just have to do it, and it's not fun. And even though you may want to twist the reality in a way that thing that is not fun, you make it want to feel it like it's fun when it's not. And sometimes you're better than others, in doing that. But it's all about joy. That's what gives me energy, and I try to do as much as that as I can. Everybody does. No?
I think this is really interesting as we come back to joy, from the miniatures, and you now do so much with miniatures and behind the screens and the storylines. It's really interesting to me how that came forward in your life. And I'm also curious, like, how doing all this stuff with the doctors informs your work now that you do.
Well, my father is a cardiologist. I mean, he's retired now, but you know, once that you're a doctor, you're always a doctor. His phone is still ringing every day. Mostly friends and family that they're asking him things. And my mother is a nurse, or she was a nurse before she retired. My grandfather was a doctor. He was a traumatologist. So that subject and that idea of taking care of others, and they're very religious as well. I'm not. I stopped being religious very early in my life. But I do believe in giving, that the most selfish thing you can do if you're clever is to give to others, is to be generous to others, because that's so super selfish, because it's very rewarding. So you just feel very good about it. So it's not that you're doing that just for the goodness of your heart, just nothing wrong with that, but actually it's very rewarding. It enriches you. So being good is okay. And you don't need to be religious or believe in any gods or follow any priest or any guru to know that, but just your heart, you know. And I think I'm going. I don't. What was the question? Sorry.
I think there's this element of just being good to others, or the element in how we interact with the world, that it's in our own actions, you know, in what we're doing in everyday life that affects others, that brings others joy, or, you know, but there's an intentionality, it seems like what you're saying, in the bringing joy to others, that it's not just a side note, it's in fact a very intentional aspect of what you create.
I think so. I mean, sometimes. I mean, I'm from Spain, and in Spain we have the light. I mean, we're blessed with. I mean, I don't live there anymore, but Spain is blessed with beautiful sun for most of the year. But we do have a very dark vision as well, and dark humor, and that is probably one of my favorite artists is Goya, who is like extremely dark, and there is something very cool about that makes me. So it gives me joy, but it's a dark joy. It's probably the same way that some people. I don't like scary movies at all. I don't like people getting hurt, so I avoid those. But I know that there's nothing wrong with people liking those scary movies and gore and all that stuff. Well, I find that in the work of Goya, which is very dark. I mean, if you see the prints called the Disasters of War, is extremely dark, but he sees beauty in that darkness and that it's very macabre, his style, and he I don't know if, I mean, he probably knew it, and he always adds a little bit of humor, so it's very dark humor. So we have those we have the light and we have the darkness, and I think we all do. It's like that title from that movie of Orson Welles, Touch of Evil. I think we all do. We all have a little bit of a touch of evil. That's why it was so great about Orson Welles, that he saw the duality of all of us, and he didn't choose characters that were just always the good guy. And there was no such a thing as good guy or bad guy in Orson Welles' movie, but you didn't know, and he was shit. And the guy who you thought he was the bad guy ended up being the good guy, and the guy who you thought that was the hero and the protagonist, all of a sudden he's a horrible person. So it's like reality, you know. We all have a touch of evil. It's just a matter of understanding and try to avoid it. But it's a constant fight, you know. It's so easy just to fall into being an asshole.
How do you explore that within such a short format? Because I think it's such maybe an interesting and complicated thing to distill such a story into a short format, as so often I and many others here watching, whenever now is for watching, you distill your stories down to a short format. How do you feel like that's possible with and to discuss such complicated aspects in life that have, you know, the hero being the villain and the villain being the hero? how do you how do you how do you go, you know, connect with that with your own work? That's I've seen, you know, such short formats.
Well, I do different lengths. I mean, I do longer format as well. I'm working in a couple of documentaries now, which are pretty long. But yeah, I find, and I do find challenge in both. I find the challenge of doing something long, especially the challenge in doing something long is keep people's interested for that long. I mean, it's like probably this that we're doing now. It's like knowing if the audience is going to be engaged. In what word are they going to say? Fuck it, I don't want to see this anymore. So that really happens in a documentary as well. It's like in which point you lower the energy or the interest, and people say, "I'm going to see if there's another movie playing in Netflix because this one is not interested." We all do that. So that is the challenge of a long form, and the challenge of the short form, as you were saying, is to in very little time, in that little time of the short attention span that most of the people have, how could you make sure that before they leave, they got that message that you were after, or that interest, or or be able to just have them smile for that little time. So I do that. I do pay a lot of attention to that. I did learn through years I mean, and there is nothing new. We've been doing this since Aristotle realized what story is about. That has a beginning, it has to have a beginning, it has to have a conflict in some point, and it has to have a resolution. That's really the nature of most of any story that is worth telling. I mean, some of them have more interesting structures of how to get there, but at the end of the day, that's really what it is. You start, you establish what is your world, you create some kind of something that gets broken, and then you resolve it. And you can do that in 2 hours, or you can do that in 3 seconds. It's still a beginning, a middle, and an end. That's how it is. That's the nature of time. Whether you resolve it properly or not, or the fact that you don't resolve it properly is still a resolution. Even if it's not an unresolved resolution, it is still somewhat of a resolution because that's the end of the story. So and there is a point where you're looking for the maximum intensity or the climax of that story that you're doing, or the payoff. And the payoff at the end is like, okay, you decided to stay with me for the entirety of this hour, 2 hours, or 40 minutes. And this is the payoff. This is why you stuck with me, and you've been listening to or looking at this piece with me, because this is the reward, and it's a promise that you make to the people, to your viewers. So the kind of work that I do, it needs the viewers. I mean, I could just work in a vacuum in a cave and pretend that I'm an artist and nobody understands me. It doesn't work with what I do. I do need the viewers, and only my work is only as good as it gets recognized or enjoyed by other people. The moment that the work that I do doesn't have that ingredient, it disappears. It has no value. And I do have a lot of work that I've done that I haven't shared, because I don't think it has materialized or created the kind of interest that I'm after. So that is fascinating. So again, I was going with the idea that you make a promise. So the moment that you make a promise to your viewers that stick with me, I mean, even if it's 4 seconds, stick with me until the end, and you are going to be rewarded. And you do that once, but you fail the next one, the next 2, the next 3. That viewer that knows you, they're going to say, well, I mean, they immediately skip your piece, because they remember that there was no reward before. We have very short memory, but we remember when things don't give us joy. And that's really that's a good measure of that is social media, because we all like give the thumbs up or thumbs down, and we just skip it. And you can actually now detect in which point people decide not to be with you. And So you get a really good idea of, is your climax too late? Or is can you hear me okay? Hello? Oh,
Oh, there we go.
oh,
Maybe I
now
wasn't even talking at all. Maybe my whole
my
monologue was quiet. I don't know. I
I
don't even
think
know.
I think the light of my house went out, so the Wi-Fi got dead.
Ah, so I just monologued to myself here for a moment with my microphone off, it would seem. Uh, and no one told me the difference. It's okay. It's
Well,
okay.
it's a mystery. I don't know what happened, but
Mysteries.
something with the
Mysteries
Wi-Fi.
happen.
Just that. I think
Is it?
I'm here in California, and I think there is some issue with the power because it's been going on and off all night.
Really? Wow. Wow. What goes on there with the power?
I it's normally pretty steady, but last night I think the light went out a couple of times, and it probably just did. I haven't checked, but the Wi-Fi is dead, so I think it's probably we have no light. So I'm just now on my phone, but I think it has enough charge for a little bit.
Okay, perfect. So getting back to joy and how you've seen it, how did you get informed to how to putting joy into your work to connecting with that audience?
Um, I mean, I think it's just instinct. I mean, I think that something that I do, being better at. I mean, I'm not great, but I'm better at with age is to trust your instinct a lot more, and that's something that I wish somebody told me back when I was much younger. The fact that there is a little inner voice, you choose not to listen to it. You just choose to listen to somebody that you admire's voice more than your own. And I wish somebody back when I was young told me, not just pay attention to your inner voice, and it's there. You just don't want to listen, or you just think that it's bullshit or some kind of new age concept, but it's there. It's constantly talking to you, and it's mostly right most of the time.
Wow. How did you learn to listen to your inner voice?
Well, I mean, I think you're in constant search of puzzle pieces in as an artist. At least I do so, and often there's so many great artists around you that just try to mimic. I mean, back when I started, would mimic, I don't know, just copy Velázquez and do like pencil drawings of Velázquez, and just try to always see through the eyes of people that you admire instead of actually. And when you finish that piece, it didn't quite fit in the puzzle of your needs. And then little by little, as I was getting older, I started like seeing that the more I do trust my inner voice, that puzzle seems to be fitting much better. I mean, it's never perfect, but it's much better than when I try to imitate or be somebody that I'm not. So that's really, I mean, we're all getting inspired by people that we admire, and that will always happen. But that needs to be just a reference. You need to listen, and be inspired by yourself as much as possible. And I know this is like a lifetime quest somehow, but it is that's how I understand it.
What does that look like in terms of listening and being able to follow that inner voice?
Well, it's a every day is a fight, because we get distracted. There is noise everywhere. You cannot say, "Well, I conquer that position, that I'm so secure of what I think that is okay." I mean, you need to be constantly fighting the insecurities, the self-doubt, the looking at other people's work and thinking, who am I kidding? That is constant. That is noise. That happens all the time, and is very fragile. I mean, be an artist and have confidence is so fragile, and you cannot think, oh, I'm already in a really good place, so I'm not going to be fragile tomorrow. That's not true. So you have to be. It's like doing sports. You just have to be creating the muscle of confidence every day. And there's periods of time that you're better, but that doesn't guarantee you that you'll be better or great in a week from now. So that is at least that is how I see it. So you cannot lower the guard of that quest or that idea of getting inspired and nurture yourself out of confidence. But not too much, because you do need to have enough. I mean, this like a sorry, I'm just doing this because my phone is going sleeping. But it's like a good when you're cooking. So you need to, one of the ingredients is to have just enough confidence, but not too much, and enough self-doubt to be able to just keep going with the quest. So it's like. And what is the limit? It just depends on the person, I guess. But you need to have both. You need to have that self-doubt, and you do need to have confidence, and they are contradictory. So it's hard. It's like, which point is too much and which point is too little? In my opinion, the moment that you're hurting other people with your doubts and your insecurity, is probably no good. So if you're giving joy and helping others, and maybe giving something that people are finding pleasure in observing and looking at, that's good. The moment that people are getting bored, they're not interested. It's nothing wrong with the viewers, as a lot of artists do. Is like, oh, they don't understand me because I'm just way ahead of my time. That's bullshit. That's not true. If people don't get it, it's because you haven't done your job. You just need to be able to. I mean, unless you live in a cave and you're doing something that is just for you, like a personal thing, and that I'm not nobody to judge it. But if what you're up is to create movies to share with other people, and people are not getting it, the problem is not the other people or the viewers. The problem is you.
It's a very interesting way to look at communication, is that to look at the communicator in the situation and to say, how do we work on the communicator to be better at communicating?
Well, I mean, there are certain parameters that you can learn. I mean, that's for sure. I mean, from the basis of storytelling, understanding how do you create climax, and there's a lot of literature, nothing that I'm inventing, of how to create climax. And you create climax by creating emotions, an emotional reaction to a piece that you're doing. And how do you create emotional reaction? You can create it through the story. So the story has is settling up until to that point, and that point is the payoff, the joke, the moment that the people fall and whatever. If you're after comedy or you're after something emotional or whatever, or communication, maybe you're giving that ingredient of tell me something you don't know, and that becomes the climax. Whatever is the story, or you can do that visually through contrast. Maybe the story just has nothing to do with an actual storyline per se, but it's something more abstract. So it's just pure visual joy. But even if the visual joy needs to tell a story. So if your visual joy doesn't change from the frame 1 to the frame 75, there's no story, and it falls in flat. But if you create contrast, visual contrast through color, through shape, through lighting, whatever it is that you're doing, but you're just creating a shift, a change, then you get an emotional reaction. And that happens even if you try to fight it as a viewer, you're going to get that emotional reaction. So that is how. So there's all kinds of tricks to do that, and that's something you learn. I mean, that is something that is it's almost like science of how do you can create climax. But when you put a little bit of yourself in that process, then it's very rewarding, because it's rewarding the person the worker, because if you're doing like an emotional reaction, you are getting that emotional reaction as you're doing it again and again and again as your perfection, and you're just see, well, it's not there yet because the climax is not quite working because I don't get it. But the moment that you get it and you're actually generating joy, you're generating joy on yourself as an artist to communicate with other people. So it's masturbatory, isn't it?
What's very interesting is you describe the emotional reactions as a storyline, as a theater, really, is that we're discussing art in the theater, in the art of the emotional rise and fall inside of us. Where did you, what have you learned in that you would really like to share with the audience here, in terms of when they go out and create their own art, when they go out and create their own works? What would you suggest that they learn more? What have you learned that you would like to share about the rise and fall of action?
I mean, it's something that is interesting, because I do. I before in a few schools, and something that I learned is to be very careful about advice. Be very careful and do it in a way that is, because something that it may work for me may not work for another artist. So that's how I always set it up. It's like, this has worked for me, but you can prove me wrong and do something that is the opposite, and it just works as good or better. So, but I can only say what it has worked for me, and what I normally do is that if I have an idea, and if you pay attention, you have ideas all the time, and that's not just me. Everybody, when you're getting out, I think you need to get a cable, because this is. Give me 1 second.
No problem. Grab your cable. We'll be here. We'll be here. You can comment in the comment section right now, whenever now is. Just take a moment, make a comment. Why not? Why not? We're here. We're here. What's going on with you? What's your emotional reaction of the day? What brings you joy? These are the questions. These are the questions. What brings you joy? What brings you joy and into the story, into the story of now. I appreciate all of you watching, the audience right now, whenever now is, listening, being here. Thank you. I don't know what you're saying, but thank you for commenting, because it's not in.
Okay,
Yeah.
no.
All right.
No, I saw.
Like
I
said,
checked that, and the light went off, so
Ah.
that's why this whole fiasco, because
Ah.
no power at home.
Oh my God. Oh my God. So, but at least you have sunshine.
Where the sun shines starts is in that direction.
Oh yeah.
Is
But
that your
do you have
question?
sunshine with you right now, or is that a light?
Oh no, this is the light. This is the light.
Oh, okay.
On my
Okay.
window.
Oh, okay. Okay, there we go. We have sun. We've got sun. I've got
Oh
sun.
no, it's like about, yeah. What time is it? Oh, it's almost 10. So it is. It's bright. It's just overcast. Los Angeles is always overcast until about 11.
Oh my God. But that does sound like great weather there. So what? Well, I'm curious. How do you go? We were talking last time here about how you kind of go about finding these ideas about what you're going to make in your artwork, and you're going on these walks. How do you translate those ideas into the rise and fall of the action, and kind of connect the two?
I mean, my processes. I mean, I do walks every day with Valentina. We just go out with my wife Valentina. We go out. We in our neighborhood, and we just and start talking about ideas. It just feels like the ideas are so much easier to digest and talk about it when your legs are moving. I don't know why, but it's been. I mean, we didn't invent that. We were talking about that, how the Greeks used to do that. What was the name? Peripatetic, I think is the way they're called, and they do that. They just talk about life and philosophy as they were walking, and so we do that, and it seems to be helping. So that I recommend that. That would be a good advice. It's just walk when you want to think, and then you just go back. So don't work too much in front of the computer. I mean, the computer is brilliant, it's great, but try not to do only computer. Just walk, look at things, because there's so many clues. I mean, you can walk around all of a sudden, just get an idea of a palette and a combination of colors that you never thought, and you're gonna. I mean, you may find something very cool in online, but if you see it in reality, it's just I don't know. It's yours. You know, it's that it's not something that somebody share. It's yours, and that moment, because the light is just hitting that particular light, flower or whatever, in a certain way, only you could see it. In the computer, online, Google, with you, probably it's going to be like a few million people, or maybe not that many, but hundreds of thousands of people are going to see that same image, and they may have the same idea, some other artists. But if you're walking in your area, that particular second of the day, the light is hitting it in a certain way that only you can see it. So that's yours. It's unique, and it's very personal. Another thing that happens is the more you nurture yourself with things that are personal or that belong to you, is going to be more original. It's just because there's no two people in this planet like you. So people may look like you, they may be similar, but exactly like you, with your history and everything that's had happened to you till that point, you're unique. So if you nurture yourself of that, you have a lot of chances of being very original. And you need to be original, because the moment that you're not original, what is the point? Why do you actually even bother doing stuff? So you need to do something that has a voice and a point of view. So and to be, I mean, original comes from origin. So if you go back to the origin of everything, and that's you, that's your point of view. So try to nurture yourself of yourself as much as possible. And if you go on walks, it's just you. The computer is out there. You actually leave the phone at home, just even if it's a short walk. And yeah, that is my advice.
Well, it's very interesting that going on the walk and connecting it to a point of view, that's the origin, is that we're looking at the world, and it's very interesting as we connect that to, we make something for many people to see, to have something to connect about, but at the same time uh, there's that needing both, is like seeing what everybody is seeing and also seeing that unique perspective. How do you feel about that?
I mean, you do need to be in the loop. I did went through my life as an artist at some point that I wanted to feel like an outsider, and the only way to be original is to be outsider, be living in a cave away from everybody, so you're like truly uh, in contact with your inner thoughts, and it's unless you're like so rich and so old and so wise, which I'm not, then what is the point? You do need to nurture yourself with other people, because there's so many people. I mean, no matter how smart you are, there's always going to be somebody smarter than you, or more interesting, or with an interesting experience. And why close yourself from it? So that is what's so wonderful, the life that we're living right now with social media and all that. You can be exposed to things you cannot even imagine. But the danger with all that is that you may end up being like a monkey, like a mimicking instead of being yourself. So it's like, how, again, is the contradiction of like being enough in touch of who you are personally, and also be exposed to what is going on out there. So have too much of either is not good. So it's just, what is the actual right balance for it to work? And probably what is work for other people, maybe the ingredients are different, or the percentage of the value, or the balance is different for other people. For me, I will say the inner part is probably close to 60%, and the inspiration from other people maybe 40. But that also varies in the month. Maybe other times I do feel splendid, and I just nurture myself mostly of my ideas, and other times I feel like I'm in need of inspiration constantly. So it's a muscle. So and sometimes you're in better shape than others, but that is fun. It's all good.
Well, it's very interesting because you talk about this as a muscle in terms of our, you know, this imagination and taking in information, and also and where we take information from, um, and when we need to exercise different aspects, it would seem.
Um, well, I mean, it's so funny because we play games with our brain. I mean, if you have a deadline, you have to do something, it needs to get done. So you tell yourself, "Oh, this is great," right? And you deep inside know it's shit, but you only have 5 more hours before you have to deliver it. So you tell yourself, you lie to yourself, and you do, saying it's great or it's good enough, because otherwise I'm miserable. So in a way when you've been doing this for long enough, you understand when is that you're lying to you, or just want to get it done, or in the search of actually do something that is somewhat great, and it's again is something that varies every day. So to sometimes you're a little bit more, how would I say, you're pushing yourself a little harder for greatness. And other times you're tired. You've just been working nonstop and you're burned out, so you just want to get it done. So it's an exercise. It's no different from a runner. You just need to be in shape. You need to know when to rest. You need to know when to put it away. But you need to trust your inner voice that is going to tell you, this is great, but if you push it, it's going to be fantastic. and you're always right in that aspect. You're always right, and you need to know when you're lying to yourself, and that's super hard because sometimes you just want to listen to the right thing. You actually even show it to people that you trust. What do you think about this? But you're really not asking them. You're asking like, please tell me it's good, because I have a deadline, and this please tell me it's good. And if he's a good person, he's somebody that loves you, he will know what is really your question. Is your question really what I think? Or is the question just to reassure you, you're okay, it's going to be fine, just keep going? You know, and you do that to yourself. I mean, what your best friend is always yourself. So you're asking, oh, is it good? So you're looking from a distance, and you're saying, okay, it's really not good. But what do you want me to tell you? You're in trouble. And be able to have the courage of throwing it away and start from scratch, because you know you're going in the wrong direction. So, and that happens. I mean, it's fun because it's uncertain. You know, that's really the work of an artist. It's always uncertain. You never know, and you will never reach the point of like the fake it until you make it. You're never going to make it. You're always constantly faking, constantly faking it, and sometimes you fake it better than others. But that is the beauty of it, I think.
And then how do you find that moment of certainty within that, the moment where you know that you've made what you needed to make?
I don't think you can ever. I mean, you can get close, but you can. I mean, I've been so many times. I was like, "Oh, this is the best thing I've ever done. This is the best thing I've ever done." And you just close it. You finish. You're done. You share it. You send it to the client or whatever. And then you look at it a month later. It's like, what the fuck was I thinking? And what did I see that it was so good? And I don't know. I don't know. It's like maybe I had the need of feeling that it was great and it wasn't. And the opposite as well. These things that are great, but you're burned out, you're tired, you hate the client, you had a bad experience, you haven't eaten well, you're sick, whatever is the reason, and you don't appreciate it. And then you look back at it maybe years after, and you look at it, it's like, wow, but why did I put this in my reel and I didn't show it? This is so great. So even your own you cannot trust anything, not even your own perception, which is fine. You know, it's not something that you feel that you don't have a ground to step on as an artist. Is that we're constantly evolving, and maybe also the world and yourself were not ready for something that you did like years ago, that you revisit, and it was like, this is great, but maybe it's good now, and it wasn't good. And that also happens the other way around. It was great, you got a lot of awards for certain, and then you look at it, it's like, well, that didn't age well. So there is certain work, and it happens with movies. There's certain work that is a product of its time, and it's great when it was, but time is brutal sometimes. But I mean, social media is fine because things don't have a long life anyways. So as long as it works that day, you can always delete it, and it's all right.
There's an element of now whenever we create that we release it from our own hands as the creator, that it goes into the audience's eyes and they get to see. What is that for you as you release something in the world in that moment?
That's Aaron. That's a really good question. That's a really good question. Is in what point you're on the top of the bouncing board, and what point do you just jump into the pool of actually sharing? And to me, I mean, I'm not a perfectionist, and I don't care for perfectionism, because perfectionism, for me to do something that's perfect, it's probably going to take me, even if it's a 3-second piece, it will take me months to the point that it's maybe once that it becomes perfect, you're sucking all the spontaneity and the life out of it. So I'm not after perfection. So I normally put a deadline on myself, even with projects that are personal, which I always have enough personal projects. I don't wait for it to be perfect. I just said I cannot spend more than 2 days in my personal projects before I share them. So I put that deadline. I'm pretty strong about that. unless it became so complicated that I may need an extra day, but not because of perfection, just to get it done. So putting yourself deadline is okay, and knowing that, especially in social media, you can always delete it. So that's the best thing that's ever happened. So just put it out there. If it doesn't work or you hate it the day after, just get rid of it. It's okay. But don't be too precious about it. Just don't be too precious, because life is too short. And nobody's an expert. I mean, again, unless you're a scientist or like an engineer, then you better be a perfectionist. Yeah. Oh, I lost the audio.
Oh no, it's me. It's me.
Oh, okay.
It's me. Sometimes the sound just disappears. As we're wrapping up this hour here, is there anything you'd like to share with the world that the world could be, could know a little bit about you, or what you would like to share?
Oh, with the world. Well, I hate talking about politics or rules, but in this country, we're going through a really rough time right now, with the whole idea of this eternal fight between freedom and putting a little bit of rules, or setting some parameters for things to work better. And it's conflicting of two things that are fantastic. It's the freedom of do whatever it is that you want, and go out and buy as many weapons and a cannon if you want to destroy the planet, or a nuclear bomb, whatever it is that you want to do, versus it may not be a great idea because people are going to die. So that is really what we're dealing with right now in America, with this whole thing of not having enough regulation for people to carry weapons. And I just feel like so powerless, because I'm just a fucking artist. I'm not a politician. I don't know much about laws or anything like that, but I feel like we all need to do something, and we all need to express our opinions. So I'm thinking about I'm just sharing my search right now. How I got up this morning. And I saw just last night, I saw Matthew McConaughey talking about what happened in the village that he was born in Texas. And it was almost like it was his calling. He was born there and he needed to talk. And he went there. Maybe some people will make fun of him. It's just an actor talking, but I saw somebody that it was honest. And I felt, I was having trouble going to sleep, because I was thinking, man, he was so to the point. And I feel, how a politician is going to twist this for them to look the other way and not do anything about it. It was just brilliant. So I was thinking, how can I help? How can I help to bring a little bit of sanity to this amazing country that has so many really things to offer, without them losing their value and their freedom and what makes them great, which many other countries don't have. And we don't want ever to happen to America. So how can I help? Because it's not going well right now. And I think it could do a lot better. And we all need to collaborate, because politicians are not the only ones that can get things done. And I think that they get paralyzed because they have conflicts of interest. So they need help. And I thought it was wonderful hearing Matthew McConaughey. And he's an artist. So what can I do? I'm not an artist. I don't have the followers, and I'm not a celebrity, but what can I do? What can we all do? Every single one of us. So, and I want to do it right. So I don't know what I'm going to do, but that's my next project, personal, that I have in mind, is like do something about that and see if my voice, put a little bit of power and energy and thought into that, and do it well, and maybe change some people's minds about the understanding of the limit between freedom and hurting people and do something that is so wrong. I mean, it's just so clearly wrong. And I think most Americans, at least, but that's what I heard in the analytics that people have done. Most Americans are very close to the ideas of what Matthew McConaughey said yesterday. So that made a big impact. I mean, not only the fact of the horrible thing that happened, but the way I mean, especially a moment that he said in his speech, how Americans are not as divided as politicians from both sides are making us think we are. And I think that that could be expanded to the rest of the world. We are not as divided as the heads of countries and politicians make us want to believe, because that's really what gives them the power, is to think that we're divide and conquer. And we shouldn't listen to that. We shouldn't be divided. We should not hate somebody because they think different than us, whether it's religious or politics or whatever. And tomorrow they're not going to get up thinking like you do. It's not going to happen like that. It's not going to be, everything's going to be great because everybody's going to think like me tomorrow. That doesn't work like that. So it's like, how do we live with other people's opinion and other points of view? And how can we live together with harmony? And it's not the way it's happening right now. So that's it.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, we need to do something, man. Let's do something now.
I mean, it starts here with a conversation, just to hear it out and to talk about it, I think, is that we're starting somewhere, and there's many, people can watch now, they can watch later, but if you can be changed by a speech, there's a lot that could be done in the world.
That discussion is to come from people that have no conflict of interest. And sadly, because of the way the system works, politicians have conflict of interest. You don't know if they're telling you what they're telling you because they want you to vote for him so they get power. So, and that is not only for Republicans or Democrats. It's just the way it's designed. But I believe people like the school teacher in the village, or Matthew McConaughey, they don't have that problem. They are not politicians. So the more voices, everybody needs to come out, especially policemen, need to come out and have an opinion and a voice without being charged of conflict of interest. That is something I will listen to more than a politician, because you never know. The politician, you never know. And it's not because they're bad people. If I was a politician, I would be not trustworthy either, because you don't know if I'm saying this to convince you or to bring you to my court and vote for me. That is a conflict of interest, but they are the ones who need to get it done. So that is what the problem is. But we need more voices that take this discussion out of politicians, and it's just common people talking about it with a little bit of common sense. Artists, whatever, firefighters, doctors, politicians, everybody's voice. There is not necessarily just a politician. So we can help them because we need them. I'm happy to live in a country with democracy. I have no interest in going to a place with a dictator. So we are lucky to be in a democracy in many countries in Europe, in South America. And we need to pressure that. So we do need those people. We cannot hate politicians. We need to help them out, but we need other voices to make things done, because in their hands they just get paralyzed with this constant conflict of one versus the other ones. No?
This is a very interesting note to, I think, take it out with, is that that the voice is in our hands to go out and be the voice that needs to be in the world, that we all have a voice in the world. We all can go take a walk and have a point of view and come to the place where we see the world in our own way. We can see on our phones, we can listen to this, we can view this, and then we can take a walk in the world and see what we think in the world and speak from that place of seeing that light on that flower in just that particular way, and know, how do we need to relate? How can we relate to the subject and be our own voice? So thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate you
Thank you.
joining today.
Thank you, Aaron, for inviting me. And thank you for your patience. I had a little mess with my wife.
It's perfect. It's perfect. This is the way that it goes, is that, you know, as we discussed, is the improvisational style, is that we're here to experiment and see the world and create the story as we go together.
Thank you, Aaron. Yes.
All right. Thanks so much. You can just click the X button and I'll wrap up here.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you so much to everyone who watched here. I'm Aaron Jack, and we were with Juan Delcan. You can find his videos so many places all over the internet. And I just appreciate you, the viewer, for sticking with us and being present with us, watching now and then again later on, and listening wherever you might listen. Today we talked about many things, from joy to having that origin and point of view, going on the walk and coming up with a story from the rise and the fall of the action, and that moment of emotional intrigue where we've waited for that moment for all of us to be here together. How do we look at it within the short format, within the long format, and know that characters are complex, that we're filled with contradictions, we're filled with different points of view, but maybe going out on the walk and finding that origin point of view and that inner voice, being able to listen to that inner voice, is a place to start. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Aaron Jack. We've been here with Doing Good HQ, where you, the artist, the creator, are also the philanthropist. Thank you so much. I'm Aaron Jack Arts, and I'll see you next week. Till then, take care.